People get held up, and that's the way it's always been done. You know, people talk about that being the 5 worst things you can say in the farming and ranching industry, is that's how it's always been done. People can get by doing that, but that's how a lot of people fail, is they're afraid to take risks, they're afraid to take chances. And, you know, nobody wants to be the reason that anything fails, right? So, you know, it's 4th generation out here, and I don't want it to stop with me. Yeah, Casey Buffington here, out here in Legend, Montana, north central Montana. We run a traditional cow-calf operation between Dad and I. We are trying to get in and fine-tune our intensive grazing practices and really work towards that regenerative agriculture, and that's kind of where us and Halter have crossed paths.
Tell me about the A Halter Cattle Company.
Well, it's an offshoot. It's just kind of a subdivision of Basin Coulee Cattle Company, where the ranch is at.
Basin Coulee.
Basin Coulee is the ranch name. Dad and I run our same herd, but we own our own separate cattle. We typically run together, except for this year since I popped on board with Halter.
I'm just going to move into a little bit more about you. We'll get to the kids a little bit later, if that's okay.
Yep.
But you're a Marine Corps veteran. What skills or experience do you bring from that part of your life back into the ranching aspect?
You know, I think it actually kind of goes back a little further than that as well. I think there's a lot that I learned growing up on a ranch and in a small town that helped me with my Marine Corps career. You know, growing up on a ranch, you don't get away with not doing chores. I mean, we were out there, we usually get up to our chores at 6:30, 7 o'clock before the kids have to go to school. A lot of kids aren't even rolling out of bed until 7:30, and you know, nothing against them, they just don't have that opportunity. These are the kids who have had responsibility in their lives. They've had to work for everything and anything. So coming out of the Marines, it wasn't anything different to me because we'd always learned how to work hard and not be done until the job was complete.
You mentioned 2 generations. That would make you...
We're the 4th generation on this place since 1931. I actually live in the house right now with my kids that I grew up in. A lot of my early years, Grandpa had put this place into CRP in the 80s and 90s. And once a place gets in that kind of financial burden, it's basically just a matter of time before it just all trickles downhill and it's gone. So all credit to Mom and Dad, because they're the ones who really put their nose to the grindstone and kept this place going.
So bringing the kids into it, describe to me, you know, how do you think Halter is breaking down any barriers between generations?
You know, we have three adults out here who will all have jobs off the ranch to keep this place going, and we're hoping by the time one of the kids comes back that generational, I wouldn't call it a curse, but that generational gap, that void has been filled to where when they come home, they can strictly ranch.
Now, you mentioned to me that you work a job in town.
Yep.
On top of running these cows.
Yeah, it's usually 2-3 days a week. I like to split off and go try and work on the other job a little bit.
How many miles do you think you do a week?
I'd say anywhere from 500 to 1,000, depending on the week. When I am in town working, I can still monitor my cows and sit right there and I can move them. You know, the other morning I rolled over in bed and set a new break at 5 in the morning because I knew I was going to be gone that whole day, and that would have taken me a half a day to go saddle a horse and move my cows and do all that stuff. You know, my 8-year-old knows how to get on there, and he'll look up his cow, his sister's cow, and then he's got a couple other numbers that he likes to check on and just see what they're up to throughout the day. So yeah, on the way to school and on the way home, he'll usually check on the cows and see how they're doing.
You mentioned that maybe the financial burden caused you to look for some solutions. Was there a single moment when you realized that you had to make a change to what was currently happening on the operation?
With the fiasco with the lentils this year. Yeah, so kind of the final decision making came about here of whether or not I wanted to jump on board with Halter, and what was going on is we have some cows that I was running down here on the summer pasture. It's a Bureau Reclamation lease. Unfortunately, it's a government-owned gate, so I can't lock it, and a bunch of fishermen were utilizing the ground, which is it's public ground, so they have every right to go back there, but they kept leaving the gate open, and it was causing a problem between me and my cousin slash neighbor up here who he had a pretty good stand of lentils that my cows kept getting into, and it wasn't just 1 or 2 head, and it went on for about 3 days, and he called me and said, hey, look, we got to do something about this. I said, I have a neighbor that I'll have come over and check on it, and if they're out, he'll put them away. And he said there was about 20 head out standing right up by the grain bins up here, and Charles ran them down, and he sent me a video, and he said the gate's wide open. So it just became a real big problem. He was about 10 days, 14 days away from harvest, and my cows were out there eating his crop, and it was just mind-boggling to me because it's about 1.5 miles from where the cows are at to where they found the lentils and where they like to hang out. And that's when I called you. I was like, "Will you just get me on board?" You know, I went through every scenario in my head, and but that day it was a no-brainer for me.
Besides time savings, where else do you think you're seeing returns with Halter?
I'd be willing to bet I've damn near paid for it in my hay savings right now. And just by getting Halter this year, it saved me from having to put up about 1.5 miles of fence. So it would have been about a $20,000 undertaking just to get this where I'm currently grazing fenced off. Usually my cows would be over here grazing across the road with Dad's, and there's usually quite a bit of grazing out there. But with the numbers, we would probably be feeding hay right now, even with the open winter, just because it'd be a little more, there wouldn't be enough forage out there for them to go pick at anymore.
That brings me to my next one, utilization.
Yep.
You know, in traditional large pastures, we allow these cows to selectively graze. Tell me about, you know, what improvements you've seen in utilization, and what does that mean for your cow herd?
Yeah, it's going to change so much for us because it's, you know, you drive into some of these pastures and some of the roadways that you drive on are right where the cows walk to go get water or salt or whatever. And so it looks overgrazed right where the cows walk, but then you drive to the next coulee and there's an abundance of grass, but they like that short grass rather than utilizing the whole pasture. And so one of the benefits I think we'll see, just the cows utilizing each blade of grass, not only is it going to improve our soil, it's going to improve the cows. You know, the benefits just keep coming and coming.
So just with that trajectory, you know, and from, you know, maybe how you remember the place growing up, and then looking forward towards, you know, what you're going to pass on to your kids, what are you trying to put in place that maybe wasn't in place for you or for your dad growing up?
Mom and Dad have worked off the ranch as long as I can remember. You know, they really did anything and everything they could to make ends meet out here. And that came with, you know, Mom working night shift and Dad working day shift and you know, still bouncing around and keeping up with us in high school. But man, I just don't want that for my kids. And not that there's anything wrong with what they're doing and what we're doing, but I just want them to have a full-blown opportunity at ranching if that's what they want to do. So, I mean, you always hear about people talking about investing and what's your biggest investment on the ranch. You know, my biggest investment is my children. This time is allowing me to invest more in them. Every hour I save is just basically like putting money in the bank for me. And so, you know, if there's days where I can check my cows from my phone and go to my kids' Christmas concert, you know, it may seem pretty little, but that's what they're going to remember when they grow up.
20 years from now, looking back to maybe this time in their life, what are you hoping that they remember?
I just hope they remember that we weren't afraid to try something new. I think they'll really remember the chances we took, the experiences that we share, and the time that we get to, you know, go poke around and look at the cows. And that's kind of what we're trying to build, is just the memories of being able to do this as a family.
Well, I think that's a great place to leave it, Casey. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.